Today. It's easier to keep the heart clean than to clean it after it's been defiled. Every time I read this, I hear Brother Currington talking about his chili fry surprise. Anybody heard that? Yeah, I always put cheese in there because chili without cheese is not right. But he talks about that was his favorite thing to make as a bachelor. He'd deep fry French fries, and he'd make this batch of chili, and he'd pour the chili over the fries, and it was really, really good. It's just really, really messy. And he talks about having made it when his wife was out of town or something, and he thought, well, I'll just make this, and he didn't clean it up. And then the next morning, he didn't clean it up, and his wife saw it and said, no, I ain't touching this. So it was a while before it got cleaned up. And it was caked on, and the stove was greasy, and there was splatter, and the pan was hard, and just it was a disaster. It was horrible. And the point is, it's easier to, as soon as you're done with something, to clean it. That's what I've been working back in there. And so whenever I'm done each day, I make an effort to clean up before I come in the next day. And people ask me, well, why do you do that? You're just going to mess it up again. I do better with the clean working place when I go to start. I just don't like to walk into a mess. It makes me, I don't like it. And God doesn't like it easier. Doesn't like it easier. Wow. God doesn't like it either. How's that? Okay. So it's easier to keep the heart clean than to clean it after it's been defiled. Now our heart is out of the issues of out of the heart are the issues of life. And if we want good things to come out of our heart, we have to put good things in. And when we sin, that comes out of our heart. That means that we have sinned. We willingly sinned. And when we sin, it messes up our heart. And we need to take care of that quickly. We need to not let that hang. Proverbs 3:5 says, trust in the Lord with all thy heart, and lean not in thy own understanding. And then Proverbs 4:4, he taught me also and said unto me, let thy heart retain my words. Keep my commandments and live. Proverbs 4:21, let them not depart from thine eyes. Keep them in the midst of thy heart. That's his words, his wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Proverbs 4:23, keep the heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Proverbs 14:14, the backslider in heart shall be filled with his own ways, and the good man shall be satisfied from himself. And so it's talking about our heart, and the condition of our heart is very, very important. And when we mess it up, when we get saved, we still have our sin nature. I talked about that this morning in my meditation. We still have our old nature, but we also have a new creature. And kind of our choice which one we live by. God wants us to live by our new creature, to be in his word, to allow his word to be written on the table of our heart, for God to have control of our heart, for us to give God our heart, however you want to say that, and let God have control of our life. But that's something we have to do. It doesn't just happen by itself. And many times we'll slip away from that, and we'll get back into control of our own life. We'll start running our own life, and that's our running by our pride and our selfishness, and we'll start. That's acting wickedly because it's not godly. The opposite of godly is wickedly, and bad things are going to start coming out, and that defiles our heart. And what we have to do when that happens is we have to clean that heart. We have to go to God, confess our sin, and so he can not forgive us of our sin. He's already done that, but so that he can extend that forgiveness to us, so we can forgive ourselves, so we can get back into the right relationship with God. I used to always think I had to admit my sin to God because he didn't know about it, and I realized that's kind of dumb. He already knows about it. I can't hide anything from him ever, but we need to own it ourselves. We need to own up to it, because we try to hide it from ourselves. He tells us over and over to keep our heart clean so many times in the Bible, and he knows that it's twice as much work to clean it after it's been dirty and hardened for a while. Proverbs 29:1 says, "He that being often reproved hardeneth his neck shall suddenly be destroyed, not without remedy." That always scared me when I read that verse. And for my own self, but as a teacher of young people and old people too, I see people that are doing wrong, and when they're confronted by it, they bow up. They harden themselves, like, whatever, I don't care. And they harden their neck, and they refuse to admit that they're wrong. And that's scary, because if we do that long enough to God, there's going to come a time when he says, enough. Just enough. I think it's Proverbs chapter 1, when he starts talking about, if you won't turn at my reproof, there's going to come a time when I'm going to laugh at your calamity. I'm going to mock when disaster comes. And I don't want God doing that to me. I don't want God standing there watching me in trouble and saying, sorry, bud, you bought this, you own it, you wear it. We'll talk later. I told you not to go there, and I told you, you wouldn't listen. So now, you're going to have to kind of wear this thing. And the problem is, when we start confessing, when we tell him we're sorry, a lot of times that means, I'm sorry I got caught. I'm sorry I'm in trouble. And we truly are. We're very sorry that we're in trouble. And we're very sorry that we got caught. But we're not sorry at all that we did it. We won't own it. I did wrong, but. Anytime we add that word on, anytime you say, God, I was wrong, but. Anytime we do that, we're not owning it. And the longer we go without confessing our sin, we let it sit, it accumulates. It's not just that one sin. Other sins will come in on top of it, because that's our bent, that's our heart. Until we get right with God, we're going to act in sin. We're just going to live there. And it's going to be more and more and more and more. And it's going to be building a stronghold in our heart, literally, to keep God out and to keep ourselves in. And it's really hard to break that thing down. Now, God can break down the strongholds in our heart. That's what the second challenge book is about strongholds. But God can break that thing down, but it hurts. It's hard and it's painful, and it's not much fun when he has to break down those strongholds in our heart. Proverbs 18:12 says, before destruction, the heart of man is haughty, and before honor is humility. And as we collect unconfessed sin in our heart, we got this stronghold thing going on. And one time I illustrated by bringing out a bunch of 2x4s and just building this thing. And it's, the other thing about that is have you ever played, what's the game when you pile this stuff up? Jenga. Y'all know that, right? Okay. But as you pull this thing, what happens when it falls? It makes a mess, right? It's all over the place. Okay, it's hard to clean up, okay, and that's what's going to happen to us. It's going to take some stuff to get back to where we're supposed to be. Now, when we truly turn to God in confession, when we truly turn to God in confession and say, God, I am absolutely wrong. No excuses, no buts. I'm just wrong, and I'm so sorry, God. I'm sorry I went against your word. Thee and thee only have I sinned against. When we truly say that, man, we're right back in that relationship with God. But we still got all those blocks laying all over our life. And we got to clean them up, and we got to mess. We got to live with it. It takes a while to get our life back on track. It's much better, as soon as something happens, just turn to God. As soon as we sin, just turn to God. Don't wait. Don't wait for that. It talks about the guy that built his house on the sand. Right, and the storm came, and it says, and the floods came, and the wind blew and beat upon the house, and it fell. And the description of it, and great was the fall of it. It was a mess. It was all over the place. It was in the neighbors' yards. It was all over the city. It was all the pieces of it were out there. Now, he still had his foundation. It was still there. The foundation was still there. He just chose not to build on it. So let's stay as right as we can with God, as often as we can. We're going to sin. That's kind of a given. We will sin. We're sinners. That's what we do. But we don't have to sin. That's the cool part. We're not mandated to sin once we're saved. I think that it's logically possible for us to never sin again, because God has the victory over sin. If we would just take that victory all the time, every time, we don't have to sin. Now, that's probably not going to happen. Jesus is the only one that ever lived a perfect life. And it's just not going to work that way, but we don't have to sin. We choose to sin. And what we have to do when we sin is just turn to God and say, I am so sorry, even if it's the same sin you did yesterday. And I have a lot of trouble with that, because when I do that, I look at it and say, if that was my son, and he did that and sinned, and then I gave him forgiveness, and we got our relationship back, and the next day he did it again. Okay, and the next day he did it again. After a while, I'd be like, I don't believe a word you say. I just don't believe you. But I know my heart too. And when I sin, I search myself, and I just say, I just don't want to do this. And then I turn around and do it again. And I don't understand how or why God can and will forgive me, but he does. Because when I'm confessing that sin to the best of my ability, I don't even get caught. People don't know anything about it. There's no consequences. It's not out there anywhere. It's just in here. Okay? And I truly don't want to. And God's working on taking that away from me, little piece by little piece, when I give it to him as much as I can. But he will continue to forgive us if we truly confess. He just will. That's what he does. He's already forgiven us, but he'll extend that forgiveness to him. So it's so much easier just to keep our heart clean. It's easier for us. It's easier for our life. It makes things so much nicer just to be alive when we keep short accounts with God. Proverbs 16:20, he that handleth a matter wisely shall find good, and whoso trusteth in the Lord, happy is he. We've got to handle it wisely, do what he tells us, and we've got to trust him that he'll do what he said he'll do, and he will. Proverbs 4:23, again, keep thy heart with all diligence, because out of it are the issues of life. If we can keep our heart in the right place, our actions will follow. And if we can keep our heart in the right place, the cool part is he will help us control our thoughts. And God wants us, when we think the thoughts we're not supposed to think, we've got to be willing to say, no, I just don't want to. No, I don't want to. And put our minds somewhere else. And if we'll do that, God is faithful, and he will. We won't think that thought. And he will work on taking those thoughts from us. He will work on tearing down the strongholds in our mind, where those thoughts are kept. And I've discovered that the reason I keep coming back to certain sins is because I really have never really truly given that to God. I reserve it because I kind of like it. And as long as I have that attitude of I kind of like it, I'm not truly giving it to God. But the more I give it to him, the more he takes away from me. Sometimes it's piece at a time, sometimes it's all at once. And that's kind of dependent on us, on how much we're willing to give to him. I think that's the hang up. It's not how much he's able to do. It's because he only goes where he's invited. He only goes when he's invited. And if we won't give it to him, he won't take it from us. But as much as we give him, he'll take it away. We give him a little bit more, he takes it away. And over time, even with our stubbornness and our rebelliousness, it won't be an issue anymore. There'll be something else, just to encourage you. All right, let's go ahead.